The Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return.
Hello, I'm Joni Siegel, the host of the Addiction Podcast. In 2022, over 100,000 people died from drug and alcohol abuse, and that number is growing daily. Fentanyl poisoning, pot, cocaine, heroin, and even psychedelics and alcohol all contribute to this crisis, while we're bombarded with promotions from thousands of rehabs. Newborns are born addicted, and the majority of homeless people struggle with drug addiction. Drug dealers exploit online resources to sell to teens, and antidepressant use is spiraling out of control. This podcast features brutally honest guest interviews revealing harsh realities and offering hope and solutions through their stories. We don't sugarcoat anything. Guests speak raw and real. More importantly, you'll find inspiration to understand, overcome, and achieve recovery, whether for yourself or to help others, some within your own family, many among your friends or associates. Whether you're seeking help or just a glimmer of hope, our podcast equips you with the latest insights to confront this generational battle. Many listeners tell us they want to join the fight, but do not have the time or money to act, lobby, or just help. If that's you, go to www.patreon.com/theaddictionpodcast and see how you can help. Julieta Santagostino, president of Drug Free World Florida chapter. Is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
Okay. What is one of the most shocking things you have discovered in terms of educating kids on drugs?
I think one of the things that kind of hit me the most, because you kind of assume, yes, there's drug problems, high schoolers, middle schoolers. But when I hear about the younger ones, I mean, elementary school age to the age of like 6 years old, smoking marijuana.
Hi, my name is Amy Newman, and my husband Bobby and I have a business called Newman Intervention Services. We provide intervention services for families who have loved ones struggling with drug addiction. Our goal is to help individuals get the support and treatment they need to overcome addiction and start on the path to recovery. With our personalized and compassionate approach, we guide families through the challenging process of getting their loved one into rehab and onto a road of a healthier future. Together, we can make a positive difference in the lives of those affected by drugs. If you or someone you know is in need of an intervention, don't hesitate to reach out to us. Let's work together and bring hope and healing to those battling addiction.
Call 866-989-4499 today and say the word podcast to get a 10% discount. Or go to newmaninterventions.com and type in the word podcast for a 10% discount. This service comes with a free 1-hour consultation with Bobby. I mean, my grandchildren are 7. That's too young.
Yeah. Even in fact, I was just remembering even younger, I've had, that it can be a scary world out there. It really can be a scary world out there. I've gotten reports even of 3-year-olds where the parents thought it was funny to just like see what happens.
I'm speechless.
Yeah.
Let's try it. Let's get a marijuana gummy, feed it to my 3-year-old granddaughter just to see how it affects her.
It's funny, It's funny. Let's see.
That's disgusting.
Yeah.
That's just disgusting. Julieta, how long have you been doing education? Drug education?
I've been in the drug prevention area for, I have to do math now because it's been a few years. It's been 18, going on 19 years, actually.
Wow.
19 years. Wait, 18. Okay. So, yeah, we rounded up. There you go.
You're getting up to 20. That's a lot since you look like you're about 25. So I know you're a little bit older, but you don't look it.
Oh, thank you.
And what are, just say a little bit about what it is you do.
What it is I do, well, I've done so many different things throughout the years. Right now I really like personally to focus on mentoring as well as media, like here with you, talking with you. But I really like to take youth and mentor them through like not just a have a talk, and that's great. And it's really needed, right? But what I really enjoy is talking to them through, it's a crazy world out there. And just getting them from what it is, what are the facts, give them the tools to have the facts so they can make those decisions, because really everywhere you go, there's information out there, right? There's false information, there's good information. It's hard to decipher. And in a place where we have fentanyl, we have carfentanil, we have stronger drugs than fentanyl. We have all these new things coming up. I want them to be prepared. Not because I told them, not because somebody tells them, but because they know how to decipher, how to make a difference in that. It's something that for me personally helped a lot growing up, where I grew up in the border, where it was something that it was just, you kind of become numb to it in a way, because you just hear it all the time. So you're like, what's the big deal? It's just, it's everybody knows, but nobody really does it. But you know about it. But what if you get to the point where you're in that crossroad? What do you do? And having the facts for myself and not being, that really made a difference. And I think that's really what I try to portray to others, to the youth especially, but, to other, adults and whoever will listen, whoever wants to do something about it, that there's a solution. And then we do make a difference.
I know you make a difference. And I have felt, I know you use the Truth About Drugs materials.
Uh-huh.
And I know that those are free materials, and those are booklets that really give the facts about drugs and what they do and what they're called and, what the effects are. But the thing I've always felt, Julieta, and I know you know this because you see it, is that kids are not stupid. And so if they're treated like they're stupid and they're just said, don't do drugs, drugs are bad, if I were a kid, I would take that with a grain of salt. I mean, my mom takes this, my dad takes that. So how are drugs bad? And I've always felt, since I was first introduced to those materials, that if you teach a child the facts about it, then they can make an educated decision.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And honestly, it is something that I have found more and more. Like, you think, but it's just like, do they really? No, they really truly do understand. You give them facts, like real facts, because they're not, like you said, they're not stupid. You can tell them a lot of things, but when you're like kind of fibbing them a little bit, they look at you and they're like, well, I don't know. Let me. Are you really? They don't, it's like this sixth sense, you could say, when it's about the facts. And when you do give them like, hey, let's look at it, because it's not just about listening, because you can say a lot of things.
Yep.
Like I can tell you pretty much anything. I can tell you I'm, this magical unicorn fairy, whatever, or, I can make up this beautiful story that just makes sense. Like, oh yes, here are the studies, and let me show you the statistics, and this is how it goes, and make it sound like it's facts. But when you really look at it in depth, you see that there's holes in there, and they're like, but wait, where are these statistics coming from? Who is saying this? Who is behind this? Is there even a study about it? Or is it just a random person saying it?
You are listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information on the podcast, or to reach out if you have a story you would like to share with us, go to our Facebook page by the same name, or you can email us at theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com, or go to our website, theaddictionpodcast.com. And please remember to subscribe to our podcast wherever you listen to podcasts, and give us a 5-star review. We appreciate you listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. We don't do this podcast because we are former addicts. We don't do this podcast because we have loved ones who have suffered from addiction. We do this podcast because we feel that addiction is one of the biggest problems facing the world today, and that no matter who you are, no matter your religion, no matter your income status, no matter your race, no matter anything about you, addiction affects you. This podcast is a free resource for anybody looking for help with addiction. If you would like to contribute to our podcast,
go to www.patreon.com/theaddictionpodcast and make a donation of whatever amount you would like. Thank you for supporting us. Yep.
It really does make a difference because I keep going back to where I grew up because it really truly makes a difference. You hear a lot of different things, like I grew up in the border. I grew up in Mexico. So I have a lot of experience, shall we say, of what drug traffickers might have, said to others in the community, what is being, portrayed as a fact, but in reality is very different. And it really does make a difference when you look at it. I remember having that realization myself as a kid saying, wait a second, that's not normal. Like, what are you telling me? This doesn't make sense because what you're telling me and what I see is very different. So the observation point is really helps locate what it is.
Yeah. Julieta, tell us, and you can even show us if you want to, tell us a little bit about the materials that you use to educate kids and mentor them.
I have some of them, but I have a series of booklets here on the most commonly abused drugs. And let's see if I can get it. We have like alcohol, marijuana, you can see that. And all of this, each one has their own public service announcements, documentary, and lesson plan. So each thing has a lesson plan that goes with it, which it just makes it very simple. Like anybody can pick it up and just do it. You don't have to have somebody that is, because in the past, like I can tell you when we started, we didn't have all of this. We just had, maybe we had one book, which was like the general truth about drugs one, which is very good and it's very helpful. But when it comes down to it, going to a school, for example, you could only have people that are fully trained in it, because really, you want to be coherent. You want to make sense. You don't want somebody just, talk. But this is the reason why I started with the foundation, because this was something that I've always wanted to do. And I wanted to do it's just the facts. Here it is. Here's the reason for it. This is where it comes from. It's not just kids, just say no, just say no. Thing.
Drugs are bad. Don't do drugs. You shouldn't do drugs. Say no.
Exactly. Which we know. Honestly, when somebody says don't do something, you're kind of like,
tend to go, "Oh, I'm going to try that.
Let me try it a little bit. Let me see. And nobody likes to be told what to do.
Right. So, and my 3-year-old is at the why? Don't do drugs. Why? Drugs are bad. Why?
Exactly.
Exactly. And so then you have to have the facts. And, for those of you listening who don't have the facts about drugs, it's really easy to get them. It's easy to get these materials all in one place, drugfreeworld.org. You can get all these booklets for free, and you can learn how to talk to your kids about it.
That's right. Yeah, I tell you, this is another thing that for me was a successful action for myself and for my family. I was lucky. Like you said, I'm a little older than the materials. So, but, I was lucky that when I was in that age of like, but why? But why? Why do people traffic this? Why is there so much crime related to it? Why do people kill each other over this? And why is there a problem with this? And I thankfully had parents that were very well educated and they would break it down for me. So when I tried to portray that to other kids, I didn't have something to portray, or to other, fellow adults as you go into, get older, high school and so forth. But having the actual facts, like, hey, listen, let's talk about it. Let's look at it. Because a lot of it has to do, like, you hear a lot of different things. You go to parties, you're just like a, wet blanket party pooper. Come on, everybody does it. But, it is your choice. And you can say, well, you know what? It's not my thing. I don't want to feel the effects of not being in control. I don't want to not be able to, decide for myself what happens to my body in that moment, or, my perceptives to be so off, focus that I put myself in danger or others in danger, because it's a lot of it is related to it. Or, I don't want to drink alcohol. I'm underage and I know what, I don't want this to affect the rest of my life. It's going to, affect my body, my growth, my, there's a lot. There's a lot.
Yeah. What has always sat with me, and it's been a long time since I watched that documentary, but the documentary is obviously with people who have had addiction to drugs and even sold drugs, and them telling their story now that they're clean and sober. And one of the things that just has always sat with me is the long-term health issues that come with drug addiction. And, people, I think a lot of times people think, okay, I've been addicted. I need to stop. But when you look at some of the long-term, I'm not getting the right word for it, but just the detrimental physical effects of long-term drug use, it's like, who wants that? Who wants to have all of their teeth fall out, or who wants to have a part of their intestine removed? I mean, really, is that what you want? But does that sound like that would be fun? Yeah, no, and okay, it's scary, but it's the truth. You watch that documentary, these people are talking about themselves,
I think I agree with that. That's something that it's quite impactful, because it's not something we have to experience ourselves. It's something that unfortunately others have been through it, and they've been through the struggle. And it is very easy to go down that road. Like really, really, really easy to go down that road. If I didn't have those facts, I could have been like, yeah, I want to be happy. Yeah, I don't want to feel introverted. Let me just try this. Because they don't tell you what's going to happen after that. Yeah, you might feel outgoing for the moment, but what do you actually look like during that moment? And what happens when you come back down? How are you going to feel? Yeah, sometimes it can end up, it's not always death, because that's what people are like, and then you're going to die. No, you're not.
No, not necessarily. Yeah.
Not necessarily. It depends on the drugs. Unfortunately, these days it's a little it's a little scary, because it is more of a possibility. But the reality is that you never know what's going to happen. It can affect you, a heart condition later on down the lines. Yes, your teeth, your sight, you can't remember things well, or you have a hard time keeping the information, and it's also one of the things that I love about it is, for me, it's very important to never judge, because like I said, it's so easy to go down that road. Music, TV, movies, it's almost like if you don't, you're kind of like the odd man out. These days it seems more and more so that way. But when you look at it, it's very easy, like, well, if they do it, why can't, let me just try it. It sounds really good. But we don't have, like you said, that what are the short-term effects? It's like, oh yeah, then I feel bad, but then it goes away. Does it really go away? What's going to happen to you down the road? Does it affect also your children? If they're in that environment, how does it affect them as well? Because it's not just the individual, but it does affect those around them, and actually the community at large, if you really want to get into the, different parts of.
Julieta, I'm going to put you on the spot. How many kids do you think you've educated over your 18 years?
Probably over 20,000.
Wow, that's amazing.
Yeah.
That's really awesome. I mean, very well done. And do you also educate parents? Do you have the opportunity to do that?
Yes, I've actually had the chance to educate parents, teachers, government people, police officers. You name it, I pretty much have done it. And
you get around, girl, with your education.
I have.
But it's so important because, back to what I was saying, that I don't think kids are stupid. And I think, there's obviously, this podcast is all about the addiction problem. And there's obviously different things that have to happen. People who are addicted have to get clean. The guys who are coming over the border and selling it have to get prosecuted. But, and I think you probably agree with me. We feel education is really the key, because if we can educate the kids, then, we're preventing the future addict. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah, no, absolutely. Even just recent, like I've been seeing more and more statistics as the younger generation are picking up drugs and alcohol less and less, which you think, oh, well, yeah, but we've worked hard on it. It's me along with many, many other people like yourself, like this podcast and the people that come on here and share their stories. We need that. We need to go together and make sure that this is, known, and prevention is a big part of it. And also, like, making sure that other stories come out as well.
Yeah.
Which is why also one of the reasons why I like the program and why I joined with the foundation for, well, all this time, because it's actual real stories and real facts from the people and from, it's all working together. And it does make all of us working together to make a difference. And it's not about judgment. It is not about attacking each other. It's about like, let's really look at it. And, these days, especially, it's harder and harder. There's a lot of chaos in the world. And, being under the effects does not help. It puts you more in a place where you can't get out. So what can we do to make sure that kids don't go there? Because that really is, it sounds kind of like you would hear that like kids are the future. And maybe to some, it hasn't kind of hit yet, but it's true. You give them this information early on, you make sure that they have the facts and you hear the stories that others have to share. And it does make a difference. It really, really does.
Yep. I completely agree. And I think that, I want to just say to the people listening, anybody can do something about this. You don't have to be a PhD. You don't have to be a trained teacher. You can get these materials free of charge from drugfreeworld.org. You could be another Julieta. You got 18 years before you're going to get there. But my point is, if you don't know how to talk about drugs, that's not an impediment to you talking about drugs, because you can get these materials, you can get these booklets, you can give these booklets out. There are so many stories about other people who do what Julieta does because these materials are accessible. And she goes into community centers and schools and parent groups and teacher groups and police groups, and you could do that too. So, rather than maybe feeling effect about this problem and that there's nothing really that you can do, and maybe you don't have a lot of money, you don't need it to do this.
And it can just start in the home, like educate yourself. You never know who your neighbor or, if you have your kids, you can talk to them, just really have a conversation. There are free courses online, drugfreeworld.org offers all of those books, all those booklets have courses with it. So they're free. Yep. So if you don't feel confident in it, it just even to have for yourself, you don't have to even go out there, but you never know in that moment where you come across somebody, and it has happened. I remember we had one volunteer that were handing out booklets, and this girl wrote in afterwards that she had received a booklet before, when she was out at the beach or something like that. I don't remember quite what it was, an event or a beach, something like that. And she wrote, and she said, and that evening she went to a party and she was offered drugs and she had just read the booklet and she decided to not do it.
Wow.
And, she saw her friends go down that road and she's like, but it made me decide because I already knew what it was. It's not like you don't feel that pressure, because peer pressure doesn't really leave ever, truly.
Right.
But, when you have the facts, and it's that moment that sometimes somebody says, oh, my kid, he's hanging around this kid. Well, let me just give you this. It's those moments, because sometimes, yes, you can do great big things and it's fantastic, but you never know. In that one-on-one, maybe you're at the grocery store, you're talking to the clerk.
Yep.
You never know.
It's true. It's true. Tell us another story of someone, or maybe one of the kids you've worked with.
Oh, well, I've had so many great stories. I had one of them that was kind of like one of those that you're relieved, but it's scary at the same time. Was one of the kids went to a party and he was offered, a joint. He said, no, thank you, passed it on, did not touch it. The joint had been laced with fentanyl or something. I think it was fentanyl, but the person who was having convulsions, the next person, so they had to, it was like that type of thing. And I'm telling you, when I'm telling you you're saving lives, I mean, literally have to save lives. You're literally saving lives these days. Wow. Unfortunately, it's getting scarier and scarier. The drugs are out there.
We've talked about fentanyl over and over again. And if you can educate kids as to why they just shouldn't do any sort of drug, then you can save lives.
Yeah, you talk about, I know that you guys cover a lot of fentanyl. I know I've seen it. It is very important. There's many other different types of drugs. And unfortunately, a lot of it is cross, and there's always new stuff coming up, new stuff every day. I for the past 20 years, I don't ever stop studying about what's the latest and what's the statistics and what is this coming up and what does it do. And I have to keep up to date because it's so fast and so strong. And to tell the kids, the youth, and the adults as well that this is what we're dealing with every day. You know, this is the type of thing that we are dealing with every day. And it's just scary. Even we just had like a lot of information. We have marijuana is legal in a lot of places, so they just, oh, it's legal, so it's totally fine. It's legal. It's not a drug anymore. I'm like, a drug is a drug, legal or illegal. It doesn't change. So let's learn what it actually is. What are the facts? Truly, what it is. On whatever it is, legal or illegal does not change. As we've seen with fentanyl, we've seen with opioids, as we've seen with many other also prescription drug abuses. So it's all very important to keep,
It is. And, we had Lance Dyer, of course, on the podcast. And, there's a perfect example. I mean, his son, committed suicide after a really bad reaction to one of those spice drugs that you can get in convenience stores. So it's not just fentanyl, as you said, it's other drugs like that where, anyway, and here's the other thing, and I've said this many, many times, like you're just playing Russian roulette when you try some of these drugs. You are. And for those who don't know what Russian roulette is, because maybe it's an older term, I don't know, you put one bullet in a gun, spin the barrel and shoot it and see if you kill yourself. It's the same thing with taking some of these drugs because so many things are going on. They can be laced with rat poison. They can be laced with fentanyl. They can be laced with LSD. I mean, you don't know what you're taking and how it's going to affect you.
Absolutely. No, it's definitely it's one of those things. And there's so many things connected to it. Like I can tell you, for me, when it comes to drugs, it also came from my grandfather was in agriculture in Mexico. And even from there, what they do to the towns there. And they pretend to be this, like, we're here to save you. You're going to they build schools, they pave roads and churches and everything's great. Meanwhile, they are literally killing people, just,
poisoning them. Yep.
Poisoning them. And, there's a lot of, we can have just like, if we can have just talk about the trafficking and what it does. But, even on the way there's a lot of death that goes even before it even hits the border, before it hits the market, you could say.
Yep.
With that, with the fake like, it's just fun. It's a party drug. Nothing happens. It's just for the weekend.
Yep.
But when we look at it, it is scary. And you never know. And then more chemicals, new stuff comes up and they always change them.
Yes. Yep. Yep. Yeah, I remember early on in the podcast talking to Pam Bondi when she was the Attorney General for Florida, and she was talking about how she would, get the formulation and outlaw the formulation, and then they would just change it, and then she'd have to outlaw that formulation, and how it was just a continuous, ongoing, vigilant attack against, these manufacturers.
Yeah. Well, even, like I said, with a lot of all these years, I'm always keeping up to date training and like the DEA trainings that I when they talk about it too, they're always changing chemicals and it's a lot of it can be domestic. It doesn't even have to be, they come from China, they come from Mexico, but they make it and they're like, let's see what we come up with. It's kind of like making their own mixtures and see what happens.
Yep. Yep. Julieta, thank you for what you do. You have a lot scheduled for the new year, I would imagine, going forward.
Yeah, well, it's always gets busy quite quickly. So
I'm sure. But thank you for fighting the good fight. And once again, listeners, drugfreeworld.org will tell you everything you need to know about these drugs. There you go. Julieta, show it again. Talk when you do it.
Okay, this is drugfreeworld.org. That's the website on it. And
there you go. The materials are free. They'll just send them to you and they can answer questions for you if you need to call somebody.
And you can download them. You can download them on your phone or your computer. You can literally just download PDF into, you have your booklet. I have it on my phone. Wow. I have a whole educator guide on my phone. I always carry it with me, even just in case I don't have internet. I'm like, no problem. Here we go.
Oh, wow. Okay, cool. Well, thank you, Julieta. Thanks for coming back on and talking to us. And 2025, we're going to lower those numbers even more because you're going to keep doing what you're doing. And hopefully some of our listeners will step up and start educating kids.
Yeah.
Like I say.
And you guys are doing an amazing job sharing the
Thank you.
message.
Thank you. Thank you. Goodbye, my friend.
Goodbye. Thank you.
Just once again, if you're still listening, drugfreeworld.org. You can download all the materials. You can have paper copies sent to you. I'm sorry, no excuse for not knowing about drugs and how to talk about them. We'll be back with another interview.
You have been listening to the Addiction Podcast, Point of No Return. For more information, reach out to us on Facebook or go to www.theaddictionpodcast.com. Our email is theaddictionpodcast@yahoo.com.